Yes, it just turned 5:30. You're good to go.
Good evening. Tonight on December 15th, 5:30, we are starting our regular meeting, um, City Council for the City of Hollister. Let's start with roll call.
Councilmember Pache,
Present.
Councilmember Resendez,
Present.
Councilmember Morales, Vice Mayor Deanda, here, and Mayor Stevens.
Here.
Thank you.
And first items on the agenda are for our closed sessions. So I'm going to have our attorney, Jennifer Thompson, read the items for us.
Sure. The city council will meet in closed session to discuss three items: public employee appointment, employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Title City Manager, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Section 54956.9 of the Government Code, one case, notice of violation from the Department of Housing and Community Development, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Property is 190 Maple Avenue in Hollister. Agency negotiator is Jim Pia, interim city manager, and under negotiation is the purchase terms and conditions.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any public comments for any of these items?
There are no public comments for these items.
Okay, thank you. Then we're going to go into closed session. Ready? Okay, so thank you for your patience as we took a quick little break right after our closed session, and we are actually going to get started with Pledge of Allegiance. So let me see, Councilmember Resendez, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City attorneys, anything to report on closed session?
No, there's nothing to report.
Okay, so we're going to go to public input. So this is a time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdictions of the council. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to the city clerk before speaking. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. If you are joining via Zoom, please click on the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. If you're joining via Zoom using a cell phone, press the asterisk and 9. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. City clerk, any public comments for public input?
We have no speakers for public input.
Okay, go ahead. You say no speakers or do you? Oh, okay. I thought you said we have a speaker. Sorry. Okay, so I misheard you. So we're going to go on then consent agenda. Any members of the council have any brief questions or comments on any items on the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull 7.1.
Anyone else? Any other item? Okay, do we have any public comments on the consent agenda?
There are no public comments on any of the consent agenda items.
Okay. Okay, so I will entertain a motion on all the, I'm sorry, on the consent agenda minus 7.1.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so let's go ahead and hear 7.1, approved December 1, 2025 regular special meeting minutes. Go ahead, Councilmember Morales. Oh,
Make a motion to approve.
okay. Okay, can I
I'll
get
second.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're going to a public hearing, 8.1, an ordinance appealing chapter 16.64 growth management program in its entirety. Can we get a staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, Eva Kelly, Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. This item is a public hearing to repeal the existing chapter 16.64. This was adopted by the City Council in 2019. It is our growth management ordinance. However, essentially immediately following the adoption of the ordinance, the city received 2 letters which were attached to the staff report from the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, that indicated that if we were to enforce this policy, we would then be not in compliance with the housing element and state housing law. So even though chapter 16.64 has been in our subdivision ordinance, it has never been enforced since its adoption. So this item is also a proposed policy in our upcoming draft 6 cycle housing element. And it's essentially an administrative repeal of an ordinance that is not enforced nor enforceable. So staff is recommending to hold a public hearing and then adopt an ordinance to repeal that chapter from our code.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Kelly? Go ahead, Councilmember Resendez.
Thank you. As you know, we're in dire need of adopting this upcoming housing element and the general plan, like in dire need, right? If this is not enforceable, then why are we considering putting it into the new housing element?
We're not proposing to put it into the new housing element. Our new housing element, excuse me, proposes a policy explicitly to repeal this ordinance.
Got it.
So we're in advance implementing a draft policy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Kelly on this side of the desk? No. Okay, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers on the public hearing?
There are no speakers for this item.
Okay. I will close the public hearing. So anything, any other questions or comments for Ms. Kelly?
Just to note this, you'll come back on January 5 to adopt this.
Okay.
It's now-
So do we need to have a motion, to come back, or do we just move?
Just move to approve.
Move to
tonight's
approve?
item.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Okay. So, we're going to move on to council business, item 9.1, a resolution approving an agreement with Roadshows, Inc. for operational management services for the 2026 Hollister Independence Rally. Can we get a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Director Charles Wall will be walking us through this at this time.
Hello, Madam Mayor, Council, Charles Wall, Parks and Rec. This evening, I'm presenting the proposed agreement with Roadshows, Inc. for operational management services for the 2026 Hollister Independence Rally. Some history. The 2022 ballot measure T advisory measure, 63.03% of Hollister voted in favor of the motorcycle rally on July 4th. On measure U, 57 against, 57.48 to be exact against. January 7th, City Council voted to hold the 2025 rally on July 4th and 5th as a two-day event. At the 9/2/2025 council meeting by consensus, the City Council directed staff to move forward with planning a two-day rally for 2026, July 3rd, 4th, 2026, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. both days, sunsetting the 2025 Independence Rally Ad Hoc Committee and forming a new ad hoc committee with Mayor Stevens and Councilmember Resendez, and continuing the partnership with Roadshows, Inc. Tonight's recommended action is to adopt a resolution approving an agreement with Roadshows, Inc. for operational management services for the 2026 Hollister Independence Rally and authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the agreement. I'm open for any questions on this agreement as you have them.
Okay, thank you for that, Charles.
Of
Any
course.
questions? Councilmember Resendez, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you have the answers to this or the city manager, to be honest with you. We did adopt a multiple year agreement with Roadshows previous to COVID. So I know it can be done. Are you aware of that agreement or how long it was, or any of the staff that's
I am not aware of the agreement. I'm not sure.
okay?
So before you tonight is just the single year agreement for 2026 historically, and Randy is with us tonight via Zoom, I believe. But historically, we are all caught up on them performing for us and us performing for them.
Perfect. Thank you. So, City Attorney, if we wanted to propose a multi-year agreement, we can. It would be a policy decision by this council. Let's say 3 to 5 year, and maybe Randy can speak to the history of the multi-year. if memory serves me correctly, we then had to amend that agreement because of COVID. So I'm assuming that we can, in fact, adopt a multi-year contract if Rotos agrees to that. And a future council, if they chose to go against what the voters decided, which was to have a biker rally, then they can consider amending or canceling that policy. Is that correct?
That's right. I was just going to add that roadshows would have to agree, but you added that in your statement.
Perfect. Maybe if we can hear from Mr. Burke about the previous agreement and if he'd be willing to enter to a 3 to 5 year contract instead of a 1.
Is there any?
Good evening, folks.
Hi, Randy, just speak up a little bit. Welcome, good evening.
Hi, how are all you folks?
We're good, Randy. Any chance you can speak closer to your mic so we can hear you better? This is Mayor Stevens.
Is that better?
A little better, yeah. Go ahead.
Did I understand? Did I understand that you were speaking about having more than a 1 year agreement?
That's correct, Mr. Burke.
And what was the pleasure of the city council?
I think at this point, we haven't had a chance to weigh in as a council. I was wondering if you would be willing to agree to that if it was considered by the council. I'm going to propose a 3 to 5 year agreement. I know we've done it in the past with you, and we had to revisit that because of COVID, but I know it can be done. I just wanted you to weigh in on what your thoughts were as in regard to that.
I would certainly be interested to pursue multi-years at your pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
If I could just add one thing, I looked at the agenda language and it does specifically say that it's for the 2026 Hollister Independence Rally. So I would recommend that if you do something different, that it come back for approval at a future meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, questions?
I do have a question, a little bit of statement too. Under the staff report, under fiscal impact, the council does seek to make this a cost neutral event to the city. So that is definitely the goal. Paragraph right above that says if Roadshow secures 90,000 in sponsorship funds, their consultant fee shall be 40,000, and for each additional 20,000 in sponsorship funds, they'll secure an additional 5,000. What if they don't secure the 90,000 in sponsorship funds? Is there like do they forfeit or do they lose their consultant fee? What kind of happens there?
So I don't want to speak for Mr. Burke, but he's confident he will have the 90,000 on that number. And that was a number that we negotiated, Mr. Burke and Charles and I, based on the ad hoc committee's input and all of your input. And so, and I would just only add to that last piece, I would get by this contract 2026 and bring back the future one if that's the contemplation. So we are trying to make it cost neutral. It is difficult to do. I don't want to misrepresent, but we are working with various parties in doing that. And so we're doing our best.
Okay, and we can enter into a little bit of a healthy competition with road shows and a fair and balanced little competitive venture. That's all I had. Thank you for that.
Okay, questions from this side of the desk? No question? You have a question? Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Morales.
Yes, so I'm looking at the contract and page 2, section BI, there were a couple of deliverables. I'm wondering, and maybe this was provided to the ad hoc committee, but what did the deliverables, were they provided to city council? I have not seen the collection of revenues or report within 45 days. So did that go somewhere? Is it provided?
So can you speak to what the David report was, Charles, and then we can go anything further than that?
Sure. So at the 9/2/2025 meeting, city manager gave a report on the rally, and I have those numbers here with me. So as far as operating income, gross income was $457,000, $896.33. And then the expenses were $654,298 and 97 cents, making the city cost $200,000. And as far as the revenue, I know that did come in later than was written in previous year's contract, which is why we extended the contract to a 45-day term, because they were having troubles meeting that. I think it was written as a 4-day timeline in the last contract. So that was part of the negotiation with roadshows to extend that term, so they had time to deliver those numbers.
So we were missing information from that meeting. So it was something to do with the revenue from the hospitals in terms of receipts that were not counted or accounting, but I never saw that come back. Was there an email? Was there a report? Was there any follow-through?
Not that Parks and Recreation was included with, but I mean, I can definitely research that and get back to you that information.
So the reason I say that is I'm looking at from a government, from a contract compliance perspective, is when there's a contract, there are deliverables and expectations. And when those deliverables are not met, then normally there's an impact. I think the second concern I have is we didn't budget for this contract. So where's the money coming from? And then three, to comment on the multi-year, I think a multi-year, we haven't done any type of RFP for this contract. We've had it for a long time. And I don't remember that we had put aside our procurement process for this contract. So can you please explain to me how we're doing this and not following through with our procurement policies?
We're not talking about a multi-year contract, though.
No, I'm
We're
just saying,
talking about,
even for
we're gonna-
2026.
Right.
Because this contract has been in place for several years and we have not gone through any of our normal procurement process. So I'm wondering how
okay.
that's happening.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
So I want to take those definitely on the multi-year. We are not talking about that before you, and it's 2026. And anything future, I wouldn't tie this document tonight to future years because there's new negotiations that have to take place. But you gave us instructions, as Charles noted, on January 7, 25, to hold the rally also in 25 and 26. We are choosing to use the same vendor for 26 as we did in 25. And I have a very good comfort level on multiple meetings to get to where we are today. And as far as the contractual obligations, as I noted earlier to Councilmember Resendez, I can't sit here today and say we're going to have a cost neutral event. I think it's incumbent upon staff and Charles and all of us to do that. We are working with a couple private parties in terms of the mayor and the ad hoc committee and myself in making that happen. I would also encourage all of you, if you have any ideas for sponsorship, to please provide those to me. And so I think these are good questions, Councilmember, and I want to be responsive as possible. And I also want to be scouring for making this cost neutral.
So I didn't hear a response to my question. So I guess maybe City Attorney, can you tell us how we're able to put aside our procurement process for this particular contract? We didn't put this in our approved budget. So where's the money coming from? Because the expenditures from last year's rally were actually billed to this year's budget. So that's number two. Number three, we're still waiting for contract deliverables that we still have not received. And if we are going to get them at some point. So I'm just questioning the legality of the action here tonight, how we're able to do that and just put aside procurement, contract compliance, finances.
I mean, I can speak to the procurement question. So, and I think that you know that the city manager has the authority to spend up to $100,000 without competitive bidding, and this contract, from what I heard, is significantly less than that. Sounds to like the city will be paying the contract at $40,000 and incrementally more than that, but to reach $100,000, it sounds like the revenue would have to be significantly more than expected. I don't know the history, though. I don't know if there was a official action by city council to make an exception to bidding, which council does have the authority to do. So I can't speak to the history, but from what I've heard tonight, for this particular contract, it's within the city manager's authority.
No, I don't remember, or if you can point out when we did that. I don't remember doing that. And then
You were on the board when we did that.
that we set aside a procurement process for bidding?
Well, I don't know if that happened either. That's what I said. I don't know. With respect to the cost of the contract and the bidding requirements, it doesn't sound to me like it requires bidding because it's less than $100,000, and that's within the city manager's spending authority without bidding.
Well, we did hear from Charles, and I am committed on the deliverable part of the question that Charles and I don't have that information tonight, but we will get back to you. Charles and I will commit to work through that. It is my understanding that they've delivered everything that we asked for in July and before, and we delivered to them the contract portions that we were responsible to do. And so that was the second part of that. And you had a third part that I missed. Oh, the budget. And the things you didn't hear about tonight that we're also working on as part of this is the security RFP, which will be going out shortly. Charles and his team are working on that, and we will be getting that out. So there are some costs that I don't even have value to yet. But again, we're committed to raising as much money as we can as the sponsorship process and to contain our costs as best we can to make this happen. But I cannot, at this date in December of 25, promise a cost neutral event.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Morales. Any other questions? No questions. Okay,
Mayor,
you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
please. Can you remind me again how much we paid for security for last year's rally?
In not talking on that subject tonight, I didn't bring those numbers with me, and without finance here, I would hate to quote that without having that exact amount.
Roughly.
Oh, I believe it. I want to say 160, 180, something.
160, 180. That sounds right to me.
I believe it is. I just
Do
don't
you know how
remem-
much? Yep, no, that sounds exactly right to me.
Okay.
Do you know how much we pay for farmers market every year?
Yep. The contract?
Yeah, anybody know?
Yeah, I'd rather not guess on any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to, if we can, get those numbers back and make them available to the public as well. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll just add like a comment. I mean, every time we put on an event, regardless of what it is, if we're going to close streets, whatever we're going to do, it's going to create some cost to the city. And I think that's sort of part of what we do as a city entity. And so the idea of, like the example that Councilmember Resendez raised of the farmers market, or when we did our car show, we did, we did the lights on parade. Every time we do anything like that, then it does cost the city some money. We don't always, generally, we don't get our money back, but there is a cost, but there is also a value to the community, to the city at large. We have an opportunity to make this cost neutral. We will work hard to do that. And we have more time this year to get to that point. So hopefully we can get to that point. But it does cost us every time we do an event downtown. It just does. Okay, so that's just a comment I'm going to make. So I'm going to move us along. If there's no other questions or comments from the dais, I'm going to move to public comment.
And there are no public comments for this item.
Okay, so let me bring you back to the council for a motion or more discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Resendez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just ditto what the mayor had said as well. And let's just keep in mind that there was a huge cost to the citizens because of the issues that we had with the security last year. And we pay a lot for farmers market, but just like the mayor says, it brings in so much value. Not only that, the people of Hollister voted on this, and we're here, we were elected by them to ensure that we enact any and all policy that they want, the community wants here, okay? So having said that, I am gonna recommend that we adopt the contract in front of us. As far as deliverables, I think that was just purely thrown out there for political reasons. It doesn't surprise me, but it's really sad. And I just want the voters to remember that when you do vote, it's very important to have people up here that are going to support your vision and the policies you want created here. On that note, Ms. Woodworth, I would like to have for the January 5th meeting a consideration for a multi-year contract to be brought back for the biker rally from 3 to 5 years with the same vendor and many of the same stipulations we have. And with that said, I'm
Let
proud.
me just check in really quick on that. Do we need to do the whole, the process for agenda item? Yeah, so we'll go through that. Okay.
Yes.
We'll go through that. Thank
And if
you.
there's no other comments, I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
Okay, any other comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Morales.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, my questions have to do with government processes, and this is taxpayer money. So I think the fundamentals of how government functions are not political. They're transparency questions. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Councilmember. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Do you have a
I just-
comment?
one-
Go
one
ahead,
last comment.
go
So-
ahead.
For me, before I adopted like a multi-year contract,
We're not talking
the
about.
previous city manager had mentioned that we were going to get a bunch of data as to how it
Rudy,
all fared.
Councilmember Per se, we're not talking about a multi-year. We're going to talk about that at the next. So if that's what the comment is about, then I'm going to ask that you hold off on that comment because this isn't about it. This is just about this 1-year contract.
Okay, and
Okay.
I would just like the information that Dave Mirione had mentioned. He kind of likened it sort of to the Super Bowl in a sense that a lot of that data, it takes a little while for it to come out and to kind of be fleshed out. So I would just like to see some of that before I entertained too much more, but that I would just like to see that.
Are you referring to the feasibility study that we put? Yeah, so we are hoping to hear something more about that soon, right? But that is, yeah, that's the feasibility study. We haven't gotten the consultant secured for that yet. I don't believe do you
So
know?
there is no information on that because I worked with the ad hoc committee back in September, October to get to this point today where we got to this point last March. So we are early. We don't have data for 2025, but we need to work to make sure that the questions that you and the prior city manager and the council are all interested in make it into some format and the data for 2026. The other thing I'd like to, if I can, Mayor, briefly, I can't promise you a multi-year popping out in January 5. I think I heard the 5th, because that requires a negotiation. We may need more time. And I'll work with you guys as the ad hoc committee on that. But right now, we're taking action only on the item
Only on
tonight.
the one, yeah, we're just taking action on the one item. Yeah, 1 year. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you. Right. And I understand that. I respect that. But we do have a policy in place that if a council member does make a request, a written request, which I will do with Ms. Woodworth, I think it's the 2 council meetings.
Yes, it's typically the second council meeting after you make the request. So if it were made on the 5th, then it would come back in February.
Perfect. So
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
so moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Let's do a roll call vote on this one, okay?
Councilmember Pache,
Aye.
Councilmember Resendez,
Aye.
Councilmember Morales,
No,
Vice Mayor Deanda. Yes. And Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Morales dissenting.
Okay, thank you. So.
Thank you.
And thank you, Randy. Appreciate you being on with us. We will continue to have conversations. So let's move on to our next item. 9.3, a resolution approving the city council meeting calendar for 2026.
And Mayor Stevens, we did neglect to announce that item 9.2 is being pulled and will
Mhm.
be heard at a future meeting. I
I
think there
just
might have been
thought-
a note for that.
Okay,
So-
okay, this item was pulled.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. So let's go ahead and move with the 9.3, resolution
Yes.
approving the city council meeting calendar for 2026. And we get a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council. Back in September of '24, there was an adopted resolution relating to council meetings that served us well in '24 and even '25, but doesn't serve us well in '26. And let me just go down memory lane. You take the entire month and have of July off as a summer recess, and that's a lot of councils do that. But having tonight's meeting was scheduled up until a few days ago, before this agenda, to not then have a follow-up meeting until the day after Martin Luther King Day on January 20th, 2026, to have a 5-week period of time when city business needs adoption, when we have a lot of things coming, didn't serve well. So tonight, basically, the change is the first and third, the only change is the first meeting, first week of January 2026, adding a meeting to the regular council calendar. So that's the 5th. Yes, in some years it'll have to be delayed by a day, much like the day after Martin Luther King. But we also listed for you as the attachment all the dates in 2026 that we are going to have. And as the city clerk, who I'm indebted to, reminds me that you can always cancel a meeting or add a meeting as you go forward. And so I want you to remember that. But we do need an adoption of this to add, frankly, the January 5th meeting of '26.
Okay, thanks for that. Any questions or comments for city manager? Council, anyone on this side? Go ahead, Councilmember Morales.
And I've already apologized to Jennifer. I am going to formally request for the council to consider changing the meeting from the 1st and the 3rd to the 2nd and the 4th Monday as a consideration. No other changes, just Mondays, but the 2nd and the 4th instead of the 1st and the 3rd.
Are you saying like in terms of like have that change affect the first meeting in January 2026, or you're going to ask for, do we have to have a
So-
change in ordinance or
That is.
resolution?
Stephen.
Yeah.
So if we are going to change our regular meeting date going forward, we will need to make that change in the ordinance to change the regular meetings to the 2nd and 4th Mondays. We've made changes to it before, as opposed to just adopting a calendar, which is what this ordinance allows. This resolution allows.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm going to recognize you in a second. Yeah, so I think that you may need to just put in another, like an agenda item, I believe, officially Vice Mayor Tianda did that last year as a way to change the time so that we could all entertain. So something similar, we can have a similar discussion. Yeah, yeah. So I don't think anybody would be opposed to at least looking at that as a possibility, but I think bring it back as a future agenda item. I think we can propose that. Okay, Councilmember.
You
Wisniewski.
covered exactly what I
Okay.
was going to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, and I will just make a quick comment that I did ask that we add the January 5th meeting. I was very, I have to just say I was unsure last year when I was sworn in why we wouldn't have another council meeting for over a month. If we canceled the first meeting, that was bewildering to me why that was a policy. So I think that it's too long of a time for us to not have come together to talk about city business and at the beginning of the year, so many things are like bubbling over. So I think it's just really important. So I asked that we add the January 5th. So I'm glad that we're talking about this today. So I just wanted to make that little comment. I just think it's way too long of a time for us to wait for a following meeting after the end of a calendar year. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that and ask if there's any cards for public comment.
There are no public comments for this item.
Okay, so then I'll bring it back and I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, if I can.
Go ahead, Councilmember
Thank you.
Resendez.
Does this ensure that we're always going to do it, or is it just for this next year? It's just this next year?
Well, we're adopting the calendar for 26, but it does put into place pending any request that's coming forward in the resolution that going forward, we would have the same first and third Mondays. We would have January, we would have off in July. So it talks about adjusting. If January 1st was a Monday, we'd have to go to the second or third or.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that I noticed, like, as the mayor pointed out, when she was first elected, she had us have a meeting right away. We're doing it again this year, and I'm just hoping that we can do it each and every single following year. And it sounds like that's going to happen with this. Perfect. Okay. Then I'll move to adopt.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes 5-0. So let's move on. Next item. So we're on 9-4, a resolution authorizing city staff to work with the planning commission to revisit the process and bylaws of the planning commission and bring back proposed changes for council action. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yes, and Mayor and members of council, before you tonight, based on a request from Councilmember Resendez from December 1st, as a future agenda request item is the possibility to direct staff on revisiting the process of the bylaws. I want to remind you, this was last done specifically to the Planning Commission on October 1, 2024. Members change periodically. Although we did provide information in a resolution, it is your current city manager's opinion that you should not adopt any change or go back to staff and the planning commission based on new member wishes. What do I mean by this? I mean that the ultimate authority and power given in this city are to the elected officials and not to members of any, what you all know to be advisory boards. And so I would caution you to, especially when we have some big ticket items coming up, general plan, housing element, and some other things, I would work with your members offline and voice their concerns to a manager going forward, but it is not my recommendation to direct us or the staff to make changes going forward. This can't be done every year or two. We need to adhere to that policy, and those are my thoughts, and I'll leave that as the presentation.
Okay, thanks for that. For that comment. Any questions or comments from the dais? No. Go ahead, Councilmember Morales.
I'm just wondering if maybe due to recent information, if we could reconsider this item maybe in April or May? Anyways, that's just a comment.
Okay.
I don't know, what do the others, the rest of you think about putting this item off a bit? Councilmember.
We can revisit this at a later date. Comfortable with that.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
agree with the city manager. I don't think tampering with something seems to be functioning properly is a great idea, but I'll entertain it. And what were you thinking?
Well,
Was it in March or May or something?
Well, I mean, I agree with the city manager. I think because there's a lot to think about, especially with the information provided today. I think if there is consideration to do anything, that we should consider doing that later on, April, May-ish or even June after other things are done.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point of that, and I don't want to speak for you, Councilmember Morales, but I will say this, and then you could just say whether this is what your thoughts were. That since staff has these big ticket items that they really need to be focusing on, that we have, if we give them this assignment, then they will need to spend time on this rather than focusing on these other things. And we want them to spend as much time on the housing element, the general plan. Is that what you mean? Okay. Okay. Thoughts? Go ahead, Councilmember Resendez.
Thank you. In terms of section 2.63, it says that in presiding over planning commission meetings, the presiding officer shall, with due consultation, the city attorney, decide all questions or interpretation of these rules, points of order, and other questions of procedure requiring rulings. Any such decisions or ruling shall be final unless overridden or suspended by the majority vote of the commission members present and voting, and shall be binding and legally effective, even if clearly erroneous for purposes of the matter under consideration. So just historically speaking, and again, we've got a lot of new staff here. I don't know if we've always had an attorney at those meetings. That's a heavy cost to the city of Hollister. If they're to consult, are we talking about staff consulting? Are we talking about the chair consulting? Are we talking about the commissioners consulting? And do we have to have an attorney at every single meeting? I don't think that we do. What are your thoughts?
As long as Lozano Smith has been the city attorney, we've attended all of the planning commission meetings. I don't know prior to that. I don't know of any other agency that doesn't have an attorney at the planning commission meetings. I mean, they are, although they are an advisory body, they are making final decisions and they are conducting public hearings that relate to people's property rights. So it is a pretty legally intensive commission. I know things like the Airport Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, we've discussed whether or not an attorney needs to be there. And I think those are much less legally stringent. This particular section that you were reading is talking about procedure. So it's really talking about the attorney consulting with the chair to determine how to run the meeting in compliance with Rosenberg's Rules of Order. So that's what that particular piece is about. But that's just my take on planning commission meetings are, again, final decisions, property rights, public hearings, state law, affordable housing, all of these things are pretty legally intensive.
Thank you. And my concern is mostly cost. I'll be honest, every time we have an attorney from Lozano Smith come down here, we do pay for them to be room and board. We pay for their travel. I'm wondering if we can pull back on that a little bit. And it's probably not something that we need to address here. Like maybe that's something we can talk about offline, and we can direct the city manager to ensure that we are relying more heavily on that consulting verbiage rather than having somebody here in person each and every time. Especially if you have commissioners that are tenured, that have been here a while and they know Robert's Rules of Orders and whatnot. That to me, I think is something that we can address, and it might not have to be addressed in the bylaws.
Yeah, I mean, if that's one of the things, that's part of this. When I was on the planning commission, it's been a while. It was, I'm gonna say 8 years ago, maybe I was on there 6 years, at least 6 years. I think it was 8 years actually. It seemed to me that we didn't have an attorney present, but they were available as needed, and staff was able to call them if they needed a consult on something. So I do think it's a good discussion to have offline, especially since cost is always a consideration. But I think it's more about having the attorney available rather than present, especially in person. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. Go ahead, Councilmember Resendez.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. As far as agenda items, do you know if the commission recently has been following the same policy that the city council has to put in a written request, or are they allowed to request at the meeting to put an agenda on a future agenda item? Sorry, that didn't make sense, but. I
No,
think
it
it'll turn-
does. They do have the ability to place agenda items as long as it's within their subject matter jurisdiction.
And have we been following that, or has there been issues with that at all?
No, not that I'm aware of. There have been some requests for items to be placed on the agenda that are outside of their subject matter jurisdiction, and staff promised and delivered a memo to the planning commissioners explaining, providing them with information that they requested, but indicating that it won't be presented at a public meeting because it's outside of their jurisdiction. So they were provided with the information just more as a courtesy and as individuals, but not to be discussed at the planning commission meeting. Their subject matter jurisdiction, the things that they have purview over are explicitly outlined in the zoning code and then also in their bylaws.
Okay. Let me just clarify the reason I brought this here. I'm sure you're probably aware of what's been happening at the Planning Commission. One of the planning commissioners, my planning commissioner, who is again, a retired board of supervisor, is very competent. He understands many of the things that we spoke about tonight, brought up some concerns. I'd really like to have the opportunity to have him weigh in. He is on his way. So if we can, is there a process in which we can continue this item to allow to hear him speak in public? And then we can come back and revisit it?
That's up to the mayor.
I'd like for the mayor and the council to consider that, please. I believe he's about 5 minutes away. We could also take a 5-minute break.
So so let me just check in. Are those the only changes that we wanted to highlight related to the bylaws? Because it seems like they're not there. If in fact there is an ability to submit for subject matter related agenda items, then that is maybe a non-issue if it's already in the bylaws that they have that ability to do that. And then in terms of the practice of how we utilize the attorney during that time, it's more about a practice rather than the bylaws. So we can talk about that offline. So I'm just wondering if it's even if we need to make changes to the bylaws or if we just need to clarify the one item as well as talk about the practice of using city attorney in the meeting, whether that's practical or not. What are you thinking?
Well, first, I do think that when we're talking about the city attorney, that's probably something that we can address offline.
Offline.
But I
Mhm.
do want to hear from the public, in particular, this commissioner, the chair of the commission, to find out what their concerns are in regards to planning commission meetings. And if that's something that we can agree to address tonight, I'd like the opportunity very much to do that. And along with anybody else from the public, since it's already agendized.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to keep this over unless I'm reluctant to do that just because it sets a precedent. That's just to be honest. I mean, I respect, because I know we're talking about Commissioner Hernandez. I respect him. I've had conversations with him about concerns. And I think that, but I am reluctant to set up that precedent to put it off, just waiting for him to come and speak. It's unfortunate. I wished he would have chimed in by Zoom, honestly. Yeah, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, Councilmember Resendez, and I'm really sorry for Mr. Hernandez that he didn't make it to make his comment, but I just think that it just sets it just sets a poor precedent if I do that. So I'm going to leave it at that unless there's any other discussion. Go
I have
ahead,
more
Councilmember
questions. Thank
Resendez.
you. So hearing the context that I've already provided, what are some of the challenges or concerns that you're seeing at these planning commissions that have come up recently in regards to staff, in regards to city attorney participation, any and all concerns that were brought up by the commissioners at the last, I think, 2-3 meetings, including how this last meeting was canceled. Was there, in fact, from what I heard, there wasn't a quorum, but if I'm not mistaken, I heard from one commissioner that they were not notified about not having a quorum or notified of the meeting. I'm really unsure about that. but
I don't know why it was canceled. I assumed it was either because there wouldn't be a quorum or because there was no business. So I also was not informed as to why it was canceled. I just
Sure.
received the notice it's canceled, so I didn't show up. I think the largest concern or the largest item that's coming up at the planning commission meetings, and I don't think it's of no concern, it's just not within their purview, is they're really interested in code enforcement issues. And that's something that is within the city council's purview, and each of those planning commissioners have the ability to speak about those issues here or to their individual appointer
sure.
about those issues. They're just not something that the planning commission is generally involved in.
And can you elaborate a bit more, like give us an example of what was brought up in regards to code enforcement?
I can't, no. I mean, not from recollection.
Mhm.
It's just code enforcement in general, like
Sure.
with respect to what the code enforcement officers in the police department do, how they issue citations, how those are appealed. Those are what the concerns that I've heard. Also, there was concerns about building department or planning department or engineering department processes, which are within the purview of the city manager and the planning department, not within the purview of the planning commission because they don't oversee staff.
Right.
The city manager and the development services director, community development director oversee staff. So it's just those things. And it's not that they have no merit. They just are not meant to be at that meeting.
No, I understand. And if I'm reading between the lines here, we've heard from the community that there has been a number of challenges getting permits, in particular for businesses and development as well. So I would assume that's what was being brought up as essentially how can we streamline the process to ensure that businesses are receiving their permits within a timely manner?
It sounds like it. And those are issues that the city council can address, that the city council has the authority over. It's
Mhm.
not that they can't be discussed and brought to a public meeting. It's just, that's not the right public meeting.
Okay. So what would your recommendation be to the planning commissioners if they were watching this now?
I mean, we've given them this same information, advised that these are issues within the purview of the city council or the city manager, depending on the exact issue, and that they can speak to their appointor. They can come to the lectern. They can, they bring these issues to the people that have authority over those issues.
Okay, got it. In regards to the city attorney, again, that's something that we can talk about with the city manager offline. And then we can expect to have, I would assume, a little bit of history with some of the more seasoned staff here to see whether or not that's always been the case that we had a city attorney here. I do remember, just if memory serves me correct, I do remember that we had instructed for city attorneys to go to all commission meetings because we had several. And the reason for that was because we had new councils and we had new commissioners, and we wanted to have the city attorney kind of help them through the process. But again, given the amount of money that we've spent on city attorneys, I do think that that's a conversation we can have offline. So those are my questions. Thank you.
City Attorney, Ms. Thompson, just a quick clarification about what you said earlier. So when you talked about code enforcement, even if the code that is being enforced or there's a violation to, is related to something that is in in terms of building that or something related to an item that the planning commissioners would look at, even if it's related to that, then code enforcement items do not fall within their purview?
The planning commission does at times hear appeals,
Mhm.
but they're not appeals to a code enforcement action, which is a citation from code enforcement, but rather they're appeals to an interpretation of the zoning code. And so sometimes those things interact because there may be the city engineer, the development service director, somebody with some authority makes a decision to interpret the zoning code, and the applicant disagrees with that decision. They can appeal that decision to the planning commission. Sometimes in tandem, those people have received citations because they have not complied with the code as defined by those people, if that makes sense. So code enforcement is outside of their purview directly, but there is sometimes overlap when there's an interpretation difference that leads to a citation. It's a little complicated.
Okay,
Does
so
that make sense?
yes,
Okay.
and I think that may be the rub, right, in this, that there is some overlap, maybe there's some gray area. My hope would be that there would be some deference given to our planning commissioners because we put them there, because we trust them, we believe that they are qualified to be there. So when there is a gray area like that, then I hope that there is some deference to that so that it isn't that we are being so literal. And then in doing so, not allowing something to be heard or to be discussed in the planning commission. So that's just my comment.
Yeah, and I think what I would say is that the planning commission authority comes from the bylaws and the zoning code as adopted by the city council.
Mhm.
Staff's job is to comply with those documents as drafted. If you want to amend the bylaws, this is the first time I've heard what might be the true intent of this
Okay.
bylaw amendment. If you want to give them different authority or larger purview or different purview, then that's where that amendment comes into play. Not with respect to adding things to the agenda. I mean, yeah, the authority is specifically addressed in both the zoning code, which is an ordinance, so that requires an ordinance amendment, and the bylaws, which are just a policy document adopted by the city council, so requires one meeting. That's where planning commission authority is established.
Yeah, well, and I'll just say this is my own opinion. I don't want to overstep and change their the parameters of what they're looking, what they're overseeing or what their oversight abilities are, because I do want it to stay within what's relevant to planning, right? But what you just said was that code violations aren't in their purview. However, there could be a bit of overlap because what they're being cited for, or what the violation is related to something that's related to a building or structure or something. So there may be a little bit of overlap. So so rather than changing the subject matter or what their oversight is, it's more about recognizing that there might be some overlap and then giving a little deference to them for that reason, because there is a bit of a gray area and because it's very complicated and because we want to be as open and transparent as possible. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Okay.
It's just, right, yeah.
Yeah.
And staff isn't within my purview, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Okay. Okay, so let me take one last comment, and then I'm going to do public comment because we've been going on for a bit.
If we were then to do as the mayor suggests, or if we were to amend the bylaws to, let's say, give them a little bit more purview, a little more privilege when it comes to streamlining permit processes, we can do that with the caveat that it comes here at the next meeting. So I feel like that might be something for us to explore, because we still have this system of checks and balances in place, so to speak. But I don't ever want to limit the people. I don't ever want to limit transparency. I don't ever want to place challenges or barriers in front of very qualified individuals who live within our district, who understand the needs. So that's why I brought this item forward, is so that we can strengthen our partnership with them to be able to do that, so that when they're here they're conducting the people's business on our behalf. We're not wasting time. And then if they were to say, like, bet something like that, then we could potentially, again, create the policy behind it. But I don't ever want there to be any challenges or any barriers to prohibit them from conducting business, which they're very well qualified to do. And I think the public speaker's here, so I will stop. Thank you.
Okay, let me check with the other council members. Any thoughts, questions? Any from this side? Go ahead, Councilmember Morales.
I think while you made a lot of really good arguments, I think we should really be focused on our priority that's here in front of us, which is the general plan and the housing element. And for me, those are the top priority until we get that done. And then after that, I think then we could explore other things. We have limited staff, limited hours, we have timelines, priorities. I think if we add additional things, while we think it may be insignificant, it still equals time and energy. And so for me, my priorities are housing element, general plan, get some of these items moving forward, and then, as I recommended, we can look at this at a later time, or,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think those are good points. Okay. Other comments?
Mayor,
Okay.
just
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just one last reminder, before you hear a public comment, then it goes back to you for decision. I concur with many of you who spoke about a delay based on all the things we know that are going to happen in the next 4 to 6 months. And so when it comes back, rather than, if it comes back, depending on your decision after the public speaker, I do recommend that it comes from one of you in the same manner, a future council agenda item, not that, oh, remember we said it's going to come back in 6 months. So I recommend the same process for when it comes back. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay. Let's move to public comment. Do you have any public speakers?
I haven't received any cards for public comments, but I assume we have one here.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez. Make sure you get one in, please.
Yes, I will. Thank you, City Council, Mayor. I'm very passionate about this item, and I think I need to be clear with all the discussion that I heard, especially online. Two recommendations. One is please play the tapes of the last Planning Commission meetings. Without being disrespectful, many of the things that the city attorney said are just not true. The reality is when we asked for these amendments, it was a recommendation within the purview, right? I kept hearing quasi-judicial, right? It almost seems confusing, maybe intentionally so, I'm not sure. Because I have had little discussion in the memo that she mentioned when I was driving over here. I never got, it's pretty peculiar. So I'm just gonna leave that there. But the bottom line is I'm telling you, is if you want to see success in this community, if you want to actually have revenue, then this should be your number one priority. And I can tell you with 100% guarantee, economic development, as the general plan mentions, as Councilwoman Dolores mentioned, as a priority is in the general plan, is through the gate of the planning department. It's through that gate. All things fail there or all things succeed there, depending on who's actually guiding this process. The recommendations that I made, and I can't get into the details because I'm limited in time, are all about transparency and accountability. And the recommendations are definitely twofold. One is to change the bylaws to give more authority, as most commissions do, where the actual chair actually is in charge of the agenda, because right now the clerk is completely in charge of the agenda. Guess what? You know about projects as much as the public knows. I know as much about projects as the public knows. The planning department knows all about projects. One of the recommendations that we made was to actually hear what projects are in the queue. And we just got a very broad statement that said, well, we have to worry about privacy. Then we made recommendations about ultimately making sure that we have, what's it called, changes to the bylaws. All of a sudden, I just heard quasi-judicial and it got deflected basically. When in reality, all I asked for was recommendations that you guys, right? I understand my constitutional authority. When I served as a county supervisor, right, we were a legislative body. We are a legislative body. I'm, as a commissioner, not. I get that. But that's not what we asked for. All we asked is, look, give this information to the city council. Let them talk about it. The public can put something on the agenda by asking to talk about it. It's not that hard. I get it. You guys worry about the liability. I get it that it gets scary when you hear it coming from an attorney, but I'm telling you, the very thing that I'm asking is just like the public has that right to, is to put it on the agenda. You guys hear it. You guys ultimately come up with the policy, yes, with the guidance of the attorney, but nonetheless, it ultimately is your final authority. One final point. I know I'm limited on time. The city manager himself ultimately mentioned when we were discussing one of the issues, if I have a couple more seconds, we actually had literally a question about
I'm going to have to stop you, Mr. Hernandez. I appreciate it. I understand. I appreciate, but I'm going to have to stop. We have to only allow 3 minutes per person, and I can't make any exceptions. I'm really sorry. But continue to talk to us about this as you can, and just know that we've heard you.
all I'm
Okay.
saying is if you want the
Mr. Hernandez,
Yeah.
I thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If I make an exception, I will have to make an exception with others, and I am just not going to do that. I'm really sorry. Highly respect you, and I respect what you have to say, but I can't let you go over your time. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back for further discussion or comment. Go ahead, Councilmember Resendez.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to Commissioner, I think he's the chair, Peter Hernandez, who's a local business owner, who's very passionate about this, for coming to speak and bring this to our attention. I agree with what the public speaker said. Economic development and business is a priority. Without that, we will be in a lot of trouble. So that should always be one of our priorities, top priorities, along with conducting many other business. What I'm seeing is that we have a willing partner in the commission, the entire commission, that's willing to address that. So I'm going to propose, which we can do tonight. This is on the agenda. It does not have to come back to another future meeting. We can do this tonight. You have authority to do this, is to change the bylaws, not where the chair is in charge of creating the agenda, but that the chair meets with staff prior to the agenda being created and has input in the creation of that agenda. So I'm going to propose that change tonight, which we can. I'm going to propose that, well, I guess I'll wait for this one to hear from you, City Attorney. But I'm also going to propose that we change the bylaws to include that the Planning Commission can make recommendations for items for the council to consider. And then the last one I was going to hear from you is as far as future projects that are in the queue. I don't know if what the speaker said is correct, or I think it's doable. I think they can hear when they're sitting down with the staff which items are there, but I'd love to hear your legal opinion on that.
Oh, no, they can certainly hear as individuals. They can talk to staff about projects in the queue. The concern was that any project that will eventually come before the Planning Commission for decision or recommendation to council shouldn't be considered prior to that in a public meeting. So
Got
we
it.
wouldn't want staff to come and say, well, in 3 months, you're going to consider this project and this one submit an application. And we also said that we could provide the same information, but without names. So, there were 3 restaurant applications, there were, something
like
more
that.
general. It's just that if they're going to consider a project in the future, they shouldn't be receiving information about the project until the actual hearing.
Okay, that makes sense. So these are my recommendations. This may have to come back for final adoption because it's bylaws, but here's my recommendations, and I'm hoping that my colleagues will entertain these. To change the bylaws where the chair is not in charge, but is sitting down with staff prior to the meeting to ensure that, so they know what's on the agenda, whatnot, and they can consult with you as well. As far as I'd like for them to have the authority to put agenda items for us to consider or recommendations for us to consider on the council. And we can do that the same way that we do any other ones. We can add a line on there that says recommendations from Planning Commission. We can give a thumbs up, thumbs down, and we can have the same policy to bring it back within 2 city council meetings. Those are my 2 major recommendations. And I would just say we don't need this language in there, but that the staff understands that if there's future projects in the queue, that they can have those conversations with them and maintain confidentiality at the same time, as you spoke of. So 2 recommendations to the changing of the bylaws, and that's what I would like.
So thank you, Councilmember. The direction tonight, as you can see, is to give us the authority to go back and change and talk about the bylaws. I agree with the city attorney. We now have a sense of what that we didn't have based on the council request for this item. But I would submit to you, Councilmember Resendez, that this is only action to then go back out. And now we have those two items. We're not changing anything tonight based on that. We are asking you whether we go and start making changes on those.
Right. So then in order to do that, we need to get a consensus or vote, a 3/5 vote up here from my colleagues to be able to do that and then bring it back for final adoption at a future council meeting. Thank you for clarifying.
So can I ask a question about making the changes? So the changes to the bylaws require some like legal speak, I'm assuming, right? And so so Jennifer, you would be the one making the proposed changes.
Yeah, I can make
And
the
bring it back
proposed
in a
changes and then it won't impact staff's other tasks.
I mean, those two short
They're
short
quite limited,
items.
yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So with that, I think I'm okay with moving forward with those recommendations in a draft that would later come back to us. Okay, so let me check in with the rest. So should we do a formal motion or are we okay with just giving that direction? So I can check in for consensus on directions or a formal motion?
We just need consensus on this.
Okay, so are you guys okay with that? Okay, so Dolores is a no. I'm sorry, Councilmember Morales is a no. Go ahead, ask the question.
Say something or?
Yes,
Question? Okay.
absolutely. Question,
Thank you, Mayor.
comments, yeah.
Okay, so, I understand this seems to be, well, I would say it's a little bit complex in the sense of, I think what Mr. Peter Hernandez is trying to do, I mean, he's not here anymore, but, it sounds like there's something, I guess, creative that may come out of all this. You know, he brings up some valid points and then we hear it from people in the community. We've even discussed it. And also local business owners that economic development is it's lagging. It's so far behind in our community and it's so frustrating for all of us. And I think this could possibly be a way to kind of start cooking up like new ideas for the council and the commissioners and building and planning to be able to work together and we can, you know, move things forward quicker because there has not been much change. So I think even though it's very passionate, there's a lot of emotions behind it. I get it. I felt when Mr. Hernandez was speaking up here, but you know, I think that this could be the start of something where we build momentum to actually make these changes that need to be made. So, yeah, so I support it, yes.
Okay, so you're good with the draft language, the recommended changes that Ms. Thompson will bring back in a draft?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Richey, are you okay with that? Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I'm good.
And I am too. So it looks like we have four yeses, one no. Is that good enough? Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks for that lively discussion. I appreciate it. Okay. So we're going to move on to committee assignments. So this is a time for any of us to report on any committees that we participated in since our last meeting. So I'm going to check in with Councilmember Resendez first.
I was going to speak to COG. My memory's a little bit foggy. Maybe you can cover that item, Mayor Stevens, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I have some COG stuff to
Okay.
report.
Perfect. I've got nothing to report. Thank you.
Councilmember Pache.
Yeah, on December 11th at 9 a.m., there was a Fire Protection Advisory Committee. And in that meeting, we discussed a bylaw amendment of just basically moving the meeting time and date. It's going to stay on Thursdays, but it's going to be moved to 4 p.m. So if the public is interested, it's going to be a little later than what used to be 9 a.m. We received an update on the feasibility study and cost recovery ordinance. You know, recovering some of the costs associated with certain events related to fire, and moving them over to potentially insurance coverages for people in the community. Their insurance could be utilized to defray some of the city's costs as results from some of the fire activity. And we did receive a report on the age of our fire vehicles, and it looks like we're in pretty good shape. We did purchase that tiller truck, so that's still coming. And but if the public is interested and wants to see and hear a little bit more, they can still watch that meeting in arrears on I believe YouTube. But yeah, so if you're interested in hearing more about the health of our fire equipment, you can definitely do so. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that, Councilman. Councilmember Morales, do you have anything to report on any committees? Okay. Councilmember Deanda, anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And I'm just going to, I went to the same Fire Advisory Committee meeting that Councilmember Bichet just talked about. I just want to do just a brief clarification that we will be hearing the change in the time and finalizing that during a meeting that we will be having in February. And it will be at 4 because it's a special meeting that we called for that. But the official meeting time will be changed on that meeting. Okay. And then the feasibility study that is that he mentioned as well is feasibility study for the possibility of a fire district in this region. So that's what that feasibility study will help us to better understand the merits of, and then more information will be coming out about that as well. So that's what the feasibility study is about. I'm going to report a little bit on the tourism advisory meeting we just had last week, and the big thing that we did that night was we made a proclamation declaring, I guess, San Benito County the home of the Pinnacles National Park. So as some of you may or may not know, we are in the east side of the Pinnacles, and the west side entrance of the Pinnacles is on the Soledad side. So our buddies in Soledad took the name Gateway to the Pinnacles before we did. So we were looking for another way that we can take advantage of the fact that we are, in fact, like our road leads directly to the Pinnacles. And so that was the logo that we adopted. So we are officially the home of the Pinnacles National Park. And so what we will be proposing and looking at doing in the coming several months is looking for ways to promote that as a way to encourage people to stop along their route to the Pinnacles in San Juan Bautista, in Hollister, in Tres Pinos, just to stop along the route and take advantage of all the other things that we have to offer in this area. We're going to also be looking at finding ways to put that in maybe at the end of reports or some of our city media stuff that, again, promotes that idea, maybe asking business owners to put that somewhere in their businesses, but just finding a way to promote that idea of being the home of Pinnacles National Park. And then we talked about a public art policy, and the public art policy was really about finding some dollars to support public art projects. And so we had some discussions around that to have more information on that at a later date. But the idea, again, is to, hopefully find ways to expand the resources in this area for public arts projects. And again, as a way to promote our region. Okay, so that's tourism. COG, we looked at a regional transportation plan. It was a draft. There will be more information coming through a public hearing in January 15 on that. So anybody that's interested in looking at that draft, it's on the website. An RFP for regional traffic impact mitigation fee was something that we looked at as well. And then Bino Abraham, the director of COG, she did a year in review and just highlighted some of the things that has been accomplished through COG, including many public outreach events, the acquiring of 2 new transportation vehicles. So that's pretty exciting. Grant applications, some dollars that came into the region for some of these projects and some other things. So the year in review summary is also on the COG website. And so that is essentially what happened at COG. And then the only other meeting that I attended was LAVCO, which was a speed meeting. We were done in like 17 minutes. Partly, well, anyway, I won't say why, but we didn't have a whole lot to discuss. So we will have more information about LabCo next time. We just did some like budget things and nothing earth shattering. So I'll have more to report hopefully next time at the beginning of next year. And those are my reports. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys last chance. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Morales.
I did have not a formal request because I think this is a closed session. If we can get an update on the Elks. I know that's time sensitive, so maybe at our next meeting, just a closed session update on that.
Okay. And then, okay, thanks for that. I'm going to ask Mr. Pia if there's anything to report from the city manager. Next item.
So I want to thank you all. This is our last meeting for 2025, and from my estimation, it has been a wonderful public policy. You don't always agree. Staff doesn't always agree. You don't always agree with staff, but you worked through it. You made it through the year, and I commend that. It's been an eventful year, and I was only here for part of it. I want to assure you that and all your departments are very busy. They all do good work. I've spoken with many staff members. They really want to help residents. Aside from some pocket areas where any city, certainly Hollister, can improve on certain things, maybe customer service changes, I want to acknowledge that because I hear some of you, we talk offline, you give me your requests offline on just basically noting things, potholes. I've done a number of things, but even before our discussion tonight on the rally, I wanted to let you know that if any of you have any ideas on sponsorships or maybe residents of yours have ideas, please contact me. That's all I have, but thank you to staff and for you as policymakers and city attorney for productive 2025. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. And before I adjourn the meeting, I just want to send out many, many wishes for happy holidays, happy and safe holiday season, and we will be back after the new year. So happy New Year as well. And we'll be back on January the 5th. Okay, so meeting adjourned.